The UFC in March. Some of the best fights of the year, but also some of the worst fights of all time. And I watched all 52 of them and ranked them from the worst fight of the month to the best of the best, starting with number 52 and the worst fight of the month, probably even one of the worst fights of all time. We have Michael Venom Page taking on Sam Patterson. Well, MVP protests against the UFC by not fighting while actively being in a fight. Sam Patterson had nothing in this fight either, and I personally would not care if we cut both of these guys from the UFC. This was a Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza type ass performance, and I hope to see you both at the UFC Apex for the rest of your careers. At number 51, we have Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font. Chiwiwis holds down Rob Font for 3 rounds with 0 damage done and 0 submissions attempted. Disappointing. At number 50, we have Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. Who the fuck told me that Mario Pinto was here to save the heavyweight division? Because what the fuck was this performance? Unable to take down and control a light heavyweight fighter while at the same time being incredibly hesitant and timid on the feet. He wins 30-27, but in a fashion that only hurts his stock. At number 49, we have Jillian Robertson versus Amanda Lemos. Robertson reminds herself in this fight that she has no striking ability after losing the first round, so she lays on top of Amanda Lemos for the next 10 minutes, winning 29-28. At number 48, we have Miktabek Orobai versus Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis gets dominated in this fight, being on the wrong end of 19 takedowns throughout a 15-minute fight, losing this one 30-27. Dante Johnson versus Cody Brundage. Dante, you won this fight, but don't let this win make you think you are any good, okay? Piero Rodriguez versus Sam Hughes comes in at number 46. Hughes had nothing on the feet for Rodriguez, but she also had nothing in the grappling for Rodriguez, so she loses 30-27. Al-selwady versus Shamrock comes in at number 45. Shamrock is not UFC caliber as Al-selwady cruises to a clear 30-27 victory. The Shem Show needs to take some time to reevaluate his game plans here. UFC 326 was full of UFC debuts getting spoiled as Rafael Tobias forgets he's the better grappler and doesn't use it till the last minute of the 3rd round. He loses 29-28. At number 43, we have Niam Jargal, Tumen Dembarol versus Cody Durden. Tumen Dembarol hasn't learned that the buzzer at the end of the round means to stop punching his opponent, but whatever, he wins all 3 rounds. At number 42, we have Cody Garbrandt versus Long Xiao. Garbrandt won the fight that he actually lost because Xiao Long couldn't stop targeting Cody's sack. One of the weirdest fights of the month. What the fuck was this shit? At number 41, we have Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. Oliveira shows us all why weight classes exist, dominating and bullying Max Holloway for all 5 rounds, winning the BMF belt. Let's hope Max gets some more muscle on that frame and that they abandon the BMF belt for good. At number 40, we have Charles Johnson versus Bruno Silva. A crafty, plotty display between these two flyweights where Johnson takes a close split decision, 29-28. At number 39, we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Roman Dolidze. CLD reminds us that Dolidze's performances over Hermansson and Hawes were one-offs and that Dolidze is just Paul Craig reincarnated. Dolidze is still dizzy to this day from all his spinning attacks and rolling around for legs. CLD wins this one 29-28. At number 38, we have Nathaniel Wood versus Losane Keita with one of the plottiest striking battles of all time. Wood squeaks out a 29-28 split decision. At number 37, we have Caio Borralho versus Rainier de Ridder. De Ridder was unable to effectively grapple this entire fight and lost the battle on the feet for all 3 rounds, losing 30-27. At number 36, we have Bruna Brasil versus Alexia Thainara. Brazil has more losses than the rest of the Fighting Nerds records combined, despite a glimpse of hope at the dying seconds of the 3rd round where Brazil lands a nasty spinning heel kick to Thainara's chin. Coming in at number 35, we have Tyrell Fortune versus Marcin Tybura. Really nice performance from Tybura here. Good to see him get this win. Wait a minute, sorry, what was that? Okay, never mind, my bad. Tyrell Fortune actually won. Good work from him. Squeaking into the number 34 spot, we have two unks in Brad Tavares versus Eric Anders, going back and forth, with Eric Anders working in the takedown in round 3 to win his retirement fight. Good career from him. Gigis. Right next to it, we have yet another retirement fight at number 33, Michael Chiesa versus Nico Price. We all wonder what Michael Chiesa knows to get the greatest send-off the UFC has ever given a fighter, and we celebrate the minimal brain damage Nico Price took in his retirement fight. Oh yeah, and Nico Price also retired. Number 32, we have Hecker Sosa versus Luan Lacerda. Sosa and Lacerda had a back and forth war where the grittier man in Sosa came out on top, putting on his best Andreas Gustafsson Marauder type performance. If you know, you know. At number 31, we have up-and-coming prospect Jose Delgado taking on crafty vet Andre Fili. Delgado shows us why he is that promising prospect, making big adjustments to his game plan in round 2 and in round 3 to bounce back after losing round 1 and win the fight 29-28. At number 30, we have Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy. In one of the strangest fights in UFC history, we see Evloev hesitantly use his grappling, not shooting a takedown until round 3. Could have been a draw with the point deduction we saw Evloev receive for the grazing nut shot in round 4, but nonetheless he gets the nod from 2 out of 3 judges. Let's see if he gets a title shot or if they go with Volk versus Diego Lopes 3. Breaking the top 30, we have Sumu Darji versus Jesus Aguilar. If it wasn't for Charles Johnson, Jesus Aguilar would have the worst hair in the UFC. Nonetheless, Sumu picked him apart on the outside, winning 30-27. At number 28, we have Rodolfo Bellato versus Luke Fernandes. One punch from Rodolfo Bellato brutally ended Fernandes' UFC debut in round 1. Brando Pericic versus Louis Sutherland comes in at number 27 as Pericic saves us from another fat blobby looking heavyweight KOing Sutherland in round 1. He begs for a bonus and does not receive it. Thank you, Pericic. At number 26, we have Danny Silva versus Curtis Campbell. Campbell shows us that Scousers do in fact get knocked out, getting put out badly in round 1. Nonetheless, what a great composed performance from Danny Silva. At number 25, we have Chanel Dyer versus Ravina Oliveira. Oliveira puts on her best Juliana Pena performance, spamming 1-2s and running into a KO shot by Dyer in round 2 from a punch and a big toe. At number 24, we have Luke Riley versus Michael Aswell Jr. Riley shows us that actually all Scousers don't have head movement, putting on one of the best Paddy the Baddy replication performances we have seen in a scrappy war that he won 30-27 against Michael Aswell Jr. Coming in at number 3, we have Adrian Yanez, or as the commentators like to say, Yanez versus Ricky Simone. Now, I don't know what fight the judges were watching, but Adrian Yanez definitely won this fight 29-28 at a minimum, but the judges give it a draw. Sorry, Yanez. Go next. Gabriela Fernandes versus Casey O'Neill comes in at number 22, with Casey O'Neill getting it done in a big return, putting out Fernandes cold along the cage. At number 21, we have Chase Hooper versus Lance Gibson Jr. A huge elbow from Lance Gibson Jr. exiting the clinch and following up with 2 big kicks puts Chase Hooper out cold in round 1. Breaking the top 20, we have Terrence McKinney versus Kyle Nelson as Terrence McKinney puts on a peak Terrence McKinney performance, getting Kyle Nelson out of there in 27 seconds. At number 19, we have Bia Mesquita versus Montserrat Rendon. Finally, we see a promising women's MMA fighter, with Bia Mesquita landing a huge shot in round 1, immediately jumping to try to find a finish with nasty ground and pound, transitioning into a rear naked choke finish in round 1. At number 18, we have Montas Kondrativius versus Antonio Tricoli. Condra showed us why he always tries to avoid getting into the 3rd round as he gasses out badly, and Tricoli shows us why he should probably stick to poker over MMA. Mostly domination from Condra here with a clear 30-27 victory. Elijah Smith versus Su Young Yu comes in at number 17 as Smith shows us why he is the real deal against Yu. Yes, Yu getting up off takedowns, defending takedowns, having success on the feet, and finding his own takedown to lock up a rear naked choke submission victory in round 2. At number 16, we have Bruno Lopes versus Navajo Stirling. A brutal finish for Stirling, landing big punches on the feet, a big uppercut that dropped Lopes bad, and then nasty ground and pound as we all prayed for the ref to stop this fight before we see a murder in the octagon. At number 15, we have Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. Now, this fight had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, so maybe it's a little biased being this high up. But Adesanya, for some reason, chooses feeling like he's been in a fight instead of actually winning the fight. Another loss for the once champion as Pyfer takes this one round 2 TKO. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Tofik Musayev. Musayev shows us why cheating is the best base in MMA as a blatant fence grab prevents a potential finish for Bahamondes. It was an insane back and forth blood spilling fight though, deserving of being in the top 15, but my god, if the cheating didn't piss me off in this fight, this might be higher. At number 13, we have Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. Should have always known that Drew Dober was going to win this fight, eh? Beautiful KO by him. At number 12, we have Io Baraniewski versus Austin Lane. Bear does exactly what we would expect, making Austin Lane stiff as a board in 28 seconds after Lane, for some reason, decided to cut 50 pounds to make light heavyweight. Lane is literally speedrunning CTE at this point. Yikes. At number 11, we have Gregory Rodriguez's redemption over Bruno Ferreira, getting a nasty round 1 KO, avenging and revenging his first loss to Bruno a few years back. At number 10, we have Alberto Montes versus Ricky Turcios. A beautiful, dominant display of boxing from Montes as he finishes a crafty Ricky Turcios in the second round. Manuel Sosa versus Bolajai Oki was an absolute back and forth war, coming in at number 9, where we saw both these guys have big moments. The biggest moment of all going to Manuel Sosa landing a big overhand in round 3, turning Oki into a 2x4. Larian Douglas versus Julian Erosa slides itself in at number 8, with Douglas showing us that he is literally allergic to adrenaline, being the most composed fighter we have ever seen in the octagon, staying calm and collected while continuously knocking down Erosa 5 to 6 times in round 1 before we found the finish. Once again, we were all yelling and praying that the ref was going to save this man. At number 7, we have Yusri Belgaroui versus Mansour Abdul-Malik. Abdul-Malik puts on his best impression of a spinning elbow body bag as Belgaroui tries to get out every single strike imaginable before finding a knee in round 3 for the nasty finish. Belgaroui is a top tier prospect, another one of Glover Teixeira's projects. At number 6, and the fight that got me as excited as anything in the month of March, Ion Cutelaba, my favorite fighter, beats Umar Sy by guillotine submission, and my Moldovan brother looked amazing in this fight. Patient, composed Cutelaba is here, and he is here to stay. Umar Sy tapped to this guillotine in 0.5 seconds, by the way. And we are here at the top 5 fights of the month. Number 5 being Kevin Vallejos versus Josh Emmett. In my opinion, Kevin Vallejos is a future champ, and this performance can be compared to an Ilia Topuria type come-up performance. Patient, beautiful boxing, avoiding everything Emmett had to offer, and slowly closing the distance to find that kill shot. At number 4, we have the highest ranked women's MMA fight of the month with Alexa Grasso beating Macy Barber. Alexa Grasso collects a body with one of the nastiest women's MMA finishes we have ever seen, dropping Barber badly on the feet, following up with another big shot and snatching a rear naked choke at the speed of light, leaving a lifeless Barber on the octagon canvas. In the top 3, these fights are all unbelievable and were by far the best fights of this month. But first, we have to start with Vitor Petrino versus Steven Asplund in an absolute heavyweight brawl. We have been waiting for a heavyweight fight like this for what seems like forever, and both of these guys rocked each other multiple times throughout the fight, with Asplund being cut badly and still swinging for his life. One of the worst physiques in the UFC, but you have got to be a fan of Steven Asplund after watching this fight. At number 2, we have Marwan Rahiki versus Harry Hardwick. Harry Hardwick fights for his UFC life, and his jaw pays the price as his corner stops this one with his jaw literally hanging off of his face between round 2 and round 3. This was an insane fight from both men. Rahiki is a kill or be killed type of UFC fighter. And at number 1, there was never a doubt. As soon as I saw this fight, I knew it has fight of the year potential. Mason Jones versus Axel Sola. What an incredible fight. Fight of the month for sure. In a fight of the year potential fight, we saw two absolute madmen swing, spin, kick, and land massive strikes throughout all 3 rounds. Sola rocked Jones, Jones rocked Sola, and repeat. A definite fight to watch for any level of MMA fan out there, and both of these guys deserve every bit of that fight of the night bonus they received. The Welsh gangster had the more damaging shots and nearly finished Sola in round 3. Jones wins 29-28, but both of these guys won our love. And there we have it. That is all 52 fights of the month ranked from 52 to number 1. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know down below what your favorite fights of the month were. And that's it.